Stewart! Yes! And surely that's the goal!
Good morning, good evening, hello, welcome to Sensible Sunderland. You join us after a 0-0 draw at Turf Moor and a 1-0 win at Pride Park. I'm not sure if it's still called Pride Park anymore, but who cares? You're joined by Anth, myself and Mark. Lee, unfortunately, can't be with us because he has had to attend the inauguration of President Trump in an official capacity on behalf of Sensible Sunderland. Donald Trump has promised us that when he takes up his presidency and invades Greenland, he's going to turn that entire country into a safe refuge for sex offenders. And on that island, 3/4 of the Sensible Sunderland cast will live. I will let you decide which ones. Fellas, how are we?
I'm all right. I am all right. It's
I'm
been
trying. Oh, it wasn't until I came on air.
no, very good, very happy, very pleased with the two results. Turf Moor, I'm not going to lie, was a bit of a sickener. We all would have taken a point before the game, but to miss two penalties is just the most Sunderland thing ever.
The Burnley result, good in the grand scheme of things. But I thought it's obviously the way we throw away another 2 points is a big gutting, but obviously we got a good result yesterday at Derby, so not a bad week in let's say when you look at the bigger picture.
Yeah, I mean, we've got lots to talk about, lots of controversy, but ultimately 4 points out of 6 from two tough away games, really. Can't complain too much. We're still very much in it. I suppose we ought to start with Burnley, although it was a while ago. It'll still be relatively fresh in people's minds. So overall performance, anything glaring, we'll just have a general chit-chat about Burnley before we move on to Derby, I think.
It was very similar to the Sheffield United away game, where all of us agreed that we came out of it the better side. And the way that recent weeks had gone, the fact that we'd managed to keep in touch with Burnley, I felt like a win wasn't overly necessary. I thought we could have gotten away with a draw. So on that basis, you were happy. But like you say, to miss two penalties was just, it felt like a defeat coming out of it. So I was absolutely good on Friday night.
It was a good performance. I think, if I was a Burnley fan, then I'd be sort of coming out of that game worried, really, because I think we really were dominant, and I think categorically we're a better side than Burnley. I've been saying this for a while. I don't know if I've reminded you of it, but
I'm Mark,
but,
and I get things right about football.
no, in all seriousness, so much better side, I think. Obviously, we were dominant for most of the game. I think we'd need to be critical really at the two penalties, and not necessarily of Isidore, because I think as a striker naturally he's going to want to take the second penalty and try and put things right. But I think from the manager's point of view, he probably needs to step in there and just sort of overrule him and get somebody else on it. But wasn't a big. And Joe, I think in fairness, Scott Parker came out and spoke quite well after the game. I think he was really really honest, and I think there was a bit of worry on his face because I think he got a bit of a shot at just how good we were. I think he knows himself that they were outplayed, and they're definitely, for me, Burnley the fourth best team in the league.
After the Burnley game, I sort of reflected. I think we played at Turf Moor how Leeds played at the Stadium of Light, where I came away thinking like, oh, they'd be better than us. Like, that's how I felt about Leeds after we got that sort of lucky draw from Alan Brown's punt, and that daft keeper sort of just let it slide. But I think that, like you say, the Burnley fans, anyone, I mean, they've been bell ends on Twitter, to be frank. However, I think any rational Burnley fan would come away from that and go, oh, Sunderland are a bit better than us, like, and be worried, really, because like Mark said, they probably are the fourth best. You know what I mean? Like, I think Burnley look like a playoff side.
Yeah, I went on a stag do with a Burnley fan a couple of years ago, and he was texting us during that game, and he pretty much said that. He said, like, at no point during that game did he see Burnley scoring, and there was only Sunderland wanting to win it.
Burnley, we're going to have to talk about Isidore and the penalties and stuff, and all we can do really is say Isidore's character is without question, being willing to take the next one and had the goal chalked off against Derby, which is ridiculous, but we'll come on to that, to then come out and apologise. And, I think it's important not to fall in love with lone players. And it's also important not to fall in love with players who constantly pat the badge and say they want to be here and they really get it, etc., etc. But cautiously, I very, very much enjoy Isidore being at Sunderland, and he's a player I feel fans will get behind immensely.
Yeah, he obviously loves the club, did he? And I think he loves being seen as like the main man. but I think his ego and his desire to be the main man got the better of him on Friday. Like, I don't have a problem with strikers wanting to take penalties. We all said after Roberts missed earlier in the season at Sheffield United, we all said, like, oh, why isn't Isidore taking it? But there's just something about like Isidore's technique that I just think he's not the best for penalties. Like, if you look at a lot of the goals he scores, they're all like worldies because his technique's so like unorthodox. So both penalties really were pretty much identical. He just kind of just hit it with his laces, didn't he, and try to get power behind it. But they were both too central, good eye for the keeper. And I just wasn't confident for either penalty. I even said to that Burnley fan, I texted him as he was taking his run and said, why? Because he was saying it wasn't a penalty. And I was like, wait, doesn't matter. We're going to miss it anyway.
When he stepped up to take the second one, the word that shot to my mind was hubris, as in like arrogance that leads to a downfall sort of thing. And I thought, I get what you're trying to do here, but the right decision would have been to give it to Bellingham or even Liffey. You know what I mean?
Well, I haven't seen this, but like some people have said, there was a point where Bellingham had the ball for that second penalty. Bellingham had the ball in hand, and Isidore went and took it off him. Don't know how true that is. Like, people who were there will be able to clarify that, but
ultimately, it's history now, and it means now to sort of came away with a draw. It was disappointing not to come away with all three because it would have been quite the gauntlet to throw down. As for last night, we'll talk about that properly since it's the latest Sunderland game. We were good once we scored in the first half and stuff, but we dropped off a little bit, and Derby put on a little bit of pressure. I never felt like Derby were going to score, to be honest. I thought we looked very comfortable defensively for the majority of that game. Do you know what your opinions are?
I mean, for me, it was a pretty horrendous game of football, really. First 20, 25 minutes, I think, it was just total lack of quality. And then, obviously, we got our goal, I think, sort of 28th minute or something like that, and we controlled the rest of the half. But then, second half, we just didn't kick on at all. We sat back a little bit, and I think Derby, obviously, they must have had a bit of a kick with the arse at half time. And in fairness to them, they played well the second half, but it was just a weird game. It was a battle performance, but it was a sort of limp to a win. We limped to it a little bit, and for me, we should be beating the likes of Derby a bit better than that, I think.
The common trend, I think, in a lot of our games, we always seem to look very comfortable first half, and teams give us a lot of space. And I think it probably ties in with, like, when we've beaten teams and we've all said, like, managers and fans have came out and said we're not all that. I think there is an element when teams go in at half time and we've dominated. I think like all Thingy Warren had to say last night was like, get in the faces a bit, like rough them up a bit, like turn and face them, and they did that second half. Like, the subs obviously changed the game. I thought they made the three very good subs. That Tyler Blackett was very good on the wing, especially. But then obviously we'll get onto the whole Isidore disallowed goal thing. But that, to me, like, when that didn't go in, I was like, well, we know what's going to happen here. Derby's going to equalise right in the death, aren't they?
Honestly, it's a good job. Like, just had literally hunted that referee down. Really, what I want to see, like that, like that's unacceptable. That, like, if we hadn't getting out that game with a win last night.
I mean, the ball over the top from Job was quite obviously onside, and Wilson scored, which was a lovely finish, by the way. We haven't really, I don't think Sunderland Twitter's talked enough about that. But for the referee to allow the celebrations carry on, and then just have a word in the earpiece and say, "Oh no, actually, I'm chalking that off," like that's desperately poor, yes, but also, should that even be allowed?
Nah, I definitely think there should be a cut-off time, like, for a referee to make a decision. Because, again, this is all hearsay, but apparently the linesman, or the fourth official, sorry, looked at his monitor. And to me, I think that's dangerous because, like, unless it's VAR and you've got 3 or 4 angles to assess and look at, you can't make a decision. Because how many times have you seen something on a monitor and it's looked totally different? Do you know what I mean? So you can't basically override a decision based on one angle. But it was daft. I think the referee and linesman and every single official let the players referee the game last night, and that just kind of summed it up. That one decision.
Yeah, I mean, if that's true about that, Anthony, obviously it's horrendous on a number of different points, right? Because it's totally inconsistent. You can't just look at the monitor for one decision. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's got to be for every single decision, or you've got to, like, you either doing it or you're not. And for me last night, that was just absolutely atrocious, really. I mean, they're not offside, and I think the Derby player runs into Isidore,
Yeah.
knocks himself over, um, and then obviously scores a perfectly good goal, and the referee doesn't look like he's going to change his mind until the Derby players surround him. Absolutely horrendous.
Have we
Well, that's
had an
what
official statement? Sorry, have we had a statement yet? Do we know definitively why he has disallowed it in the end? Is he set offside?
um. I read something that he's given offside because there was interference when the Derby player ran into the back of him. He's give like an offside as some fucking
Oh,
bylaw. So like it's something ridiculous. It's a cop out basically, but
yeah.
I don't know the proper details. But there is something out there where effectively they've stood by the decision. But I think that's just to save face in it because there's absolutely no mitigation whatsoever. It's a fucking shambles of a decision. Luckily, it didn't matter, as Mark says, but because if it did matter, it would be a much more of an issue being brought up, by the club, especially. Like it can't be allowed to happen. That it's a shocking decision.
Well, people are even making the argument and saying it could all come down to goal difference at the end of the season. Imagine if we miss out on the automatics because of one goal.
It would be Sunderland as fuck, like, wouldn't
Well, I'll be hunting that referee down at the end of the season then.
it? I am not above committing murder for my club.
But for
I
legal
don't know.
reasons, we better nip that in the bud than say it.
I'm sure you'll put. I'm sure you'll put over one of your little voiceovers.
I will.
That covers us legally.
Dan, Mark, and Lee, but not Anth. Frequently wank off dogs.
Another thing I want to say regarding the game yesterday is justice for Eliza Mayenda. I'm getting a bit of a soft spot. I feel like him the same way I felt about Nyron Nosworthy because I get the impression that Mayenda's a bit of a dope, but he happens to be like a good footballer who still manages to do it well.
A bit of a dope.
I don't know why. I've got nothing to back that up, but I just think he's got a daft face.
At the end, he was proper loving life, and I was just thinking, like, he's not going to get on the bus home. It's going to be a turf moor at 3 o'clock in the morning in an empty stadium.
He came on the bus home with the daft lads, full of Colombian marching powder in the bugs. No, but I thought he was very, very good. You forget he's 19. He's young and he's got a lot of quality for a player at that age. He's fast, he's strong, he's good with his feet. Like I'm excited to see how he goes on actually. Like as his career develops.
It's always stuck with me that, like, when we had 4 terrible strikers last season, Tony Mowbray always stuck to his guns and said, like, Mayenda, when he gets going, he'll be the one, like, he'll be the main man. So I think maybe we're starting to see glimpses of that now. He's still obviously got a long way to go and he's still pretty rough around the edges. But I think we are starting to see the emergence of a player, to be honest.
Obviously we've talked about the goals and stuff. We ought to talk about some of the negative sides. The Chris Rigg was quite poor last night. I mean, bloody hell, you can forgive that because he's been excellent, but he looked a little bit lost. He couldn't really influence the game particularly well. And I've also seen Tri Hume getting a lot of stick, and I'll caveat this by saying Tri Hume actually won Player of the Match on Sky last night. But also, people will say Tri Hume's too comfortable in that position because there isn't enough competition. He seems to have stagnated from last season. He's got no better. I don't know how I feel about it really because I think Mark, you've often said, whispering quietly that Tri Hume's slightly overrated because he likes a big challenge.
Yeah, it's that cat and ball effect sometimes. And don't get us wrong, I'm not, to me, Tri Hume's not in the cat and ball bracket at all. I do really like him as a player. Stagnated might be the right word, or as the rest of the squad just improved around him, and he's maybe, he's just putting the same performances in his last season. He's a very good player. I just like there's just improvements as there is with all the squad. Really, he's just a young lad. But yeah, I mean the Cattermole thing. Obviously, I've said before. I think, but he's not my cup of tea. Cattermole. People loved him because he put the odd tackle in, but he was a pretty, in my view, pretty disgraceful servant for the club. Really, he was with us through literally every relegation. Supposed to be, a really big earner. He was terrible for the club in my view, Cattermole. So, Tri Hume's definitely not in that part. But yeah, I think it's just some improvements to me. I think, and I think part of it as well might be the fact that he's playing Libre's playing a different system to other managers. So, he's got something new to get used to a little bit with Hume.
I think with like Hume, if you look on the other side with Sirkin was always the one who was more known for kind of getting forward and like overlapping with his winger. I always felt like Hume was the more like kind of traditional defensive player. Like he didn't really do out daft. He was just solid defensively. But like Mark says, I think it's maybe down to the system Labry's playing. He's having to his positioning last night, for example. There was times where he was ahead of Chris Rigg a lot of the time. He was further forward than Chris Rigg, and maybe that's why Chris Rigg didn't really have the best of games as well. But he always seems to drift into the centre now as well. And that leaves us very exposed, I think, on his side against a decent winger. But he just, on about his positioning, I don't think he really knows what his proper position is at the minute. It seems he just kind of ghosts about.
I don't know. I don't want to be too harsh on him because he does have his moments, and he's been a very good servant for the club, etc. But I do wonder, like, let's say we go up and Premier League side, I won't really think Tri-Hugh makes that step up. I might be wrong. I might have been harsh. I'm sure people will tell us, but I'm not sure whether I'd be fully convinced by him in the Premier League.
I mean, he deserves an opportunity, but you could say that for a lot of them. Like, as much as we love them and as good as they are, like if we want to be serious about staying up in the Premier League and not just doing like an Ipswich or a Luton, we need something a bit more reliable.
Obviously, I think Anthony, right? Like there's probably question marks over the vast majority of the squad, given their age and obviously a lot of experience at that level. But I think we're probably nitpicking a little bit at the moment now because we're like, obviously things are positive, but last night's performance wasn't perfect. So obviously, we are nitpicking a little bit. Try him generally for me. He's spot on, really reliable, right back for me. But so we are nitpicking a little bit, I think.
I mean, I would totally agree with you because I was going to mention that Patterson's arse looked a bit slimmer last night. I don't know if he's just getting the bigger size up in shorts or whether like his arse gets fatter the worse he plays. Like his footwork and that looked all right last night, but he made some good saves. Saves you would expect him to make, fair enough, but he still had to be there to do it. And again, we have to be patient with players, and you've always said, Mark, Patterson's not an issue, goalkeeping's not an issue. Generally, seeing the videos I put on the Sensible Sunderland page at the end of the game, it does feel like the good times are back a bit. The players and fans seem to be on the same page. Everything's good with the management. Everyone likes Lebris. Dreyfus is spending money and stuff. All of a sudden, we're like, it seems like the club are really going for a Premier League push here, and we might well get it. Like.
It makes you think, like we obviously criticised them last season when it just seemed like halfway through they kind of down tools. But I think it might have been you again, Mark, when you were like, I think the club are happy to just get through the summer. I think they do obviously have a plan. And I feel like we do owe them a bit of an apology because I feel like everything has slowly came together. And I think it's commendable that the club didn't panic. Everything, they've just kind of waited for the pieces to kind of slot into place, and they haven't kind of acted out of desperation or acted out of like, fans demanding we do this. They've just kind of sat and waited. Everyone said, oh, he's a billionaire, but he can't spend money. And like now, when the situation calls for it, he's like, right, now we go. So I think everything's been very methodically planned out, and it's coming off well at the minute.
Here's something I'd like to ask is, how disappointed or not disappointed are you that we didn't sign Tom Cannon?
I'm not that asked.
Yeah, I put in the group, didn't I? I was like, he's a good player, and he'd definitely be useful at the end of the season. But like, I won't be disappointed if we miss out on him, which it looks like we're going to. So it's a weird one. Remember Charlie White? When Charlie White left the club,
Yeah,
I wasn't disappointed with that. It was a similar feeling. Do you know what I mean? Like he'd score goals for us, but. Like, I genuinely wasn't disappointed when Charlie White left.
Yeah, my big thing, I feel like we're kind of jumping the gun a bit here because we're talking about next season being in the Premier League. But like, I always just thought it's a daft deal for someone who isn't going to cut it in the Premier League. Like, I might get us up, which is all well and good when you think about the here and now. But then you're having to pay 30 million for a player that isn't going to keep you up. So it's like, well, what's the point?
I'm quite pleased that the club have sort of done their transfer business quietly. So I think we tend to know if there's like whispers that someone's going to sign this person or that person, it won't be true. But also, I love that the club's sort of transfer strategy now is we're signing players that nobody else is signing. You know what I mean? Like we're not signing the types of players that Burnley and fucking Sheffield United are battling for. We're not interested. That's not our policy, clearly.
And they're all good. Like I know we had a bit of a bad recruitment last summer, but like they're all good signings as well. And I think especially now that you've had Lafay coming through the door, that was probably our most blatantly kind of like marquee statement signing. So I think it
Absolutely.
just kind of, it pricks everybody's ears up a little bit to say like, hang on, Sunderland mean business here. And I think
Yeah.
every kind of bright young player in Europe, to be honest, like within reason, but every bright young player to a point in Europe now, Sunderland looks like a very attractive proposition if you want to kind of kickstart your career and potentially end up in the Premier League.
That's exactly right. And then it's up to the players if they do establish themselves and they get the career back on track to make the right decision, i.e., Jack Clark. You know what I mean? But your point, Marcus, then I'd love to talk about Enzo Lafay.
Yeah, well, I was basically going to say about the fee. Like, if you look for context, Burnley have just signed John Joe Shelby. We've
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
we've signed Enzo Lafay, and
Mhm.
obviously I'm sure there'll be something else up the sleeves as well. But to me, with Sheffield United, it looks like they're panic buying a little bit for me because
Mhm.
they spent look like they're going to spend a calibre of money on Tom Cannon, got Brereton Diaz in, but they aren't Premier League footballers in my view. They might get them up, but to me it looks a bit more panicky than our transfer business.
I'm always really wary of like because Sheffield United's got those new owners, haven't they, as well? I'm always really wary when new owners come in and they just start spending straight away. Because
Mhm.
I just think to me, it's like you just throwing you throw enough shit in some sticks. Do you know what I mean? That's
Yeah,
what
I,
it
I
is.
would,
No real
I would,
plan.
I would describe it as scattergun.
Hmm.
You're just like, well, these players are getting promoted before, so they'll be good. Yeah, spend the money, spend the money, spend. And then they get to the Premier League and they can't really spend much more money. It's like, oh, bollocks, we're going down. As for Sunderland, Enzo Lafay, I mean, I would go out on a whim here and say he is quite clearly a cut above the rest of the squad. Like,
He just looks silky, doesn't he? Like everything he does, like his touch. He never seems to panic on the ball. He always finds space. I would like to see him a bit more central. Like I'd like to see maybe on Saturday how that
mm-hmm.
goes. But he hasn't put a foot wrong in playing out wide in both those games.
Yeah, I quite like him out wide. I think that you can see his mind's just a bit quicker than the rest of the lads at the minute, and I like. But I mean, that's what makes the difference between like top quality footballers, doesn't it? It's like it's how quick the
That's
mind
it.
works, really. And I just hope that the squad catch up with that, and he doesn't drop drop his standard, if that makes sense. But
Mm-hmm.
I
I think
totally positive about that. I really like him on the left as well. I think he's really good on the left.
Like I look at him and like I say like a Lamborghini, and then the rest of the squad of Vauxhall courses. You know what I mean? Like you can see that he's like he's always one step ahead. His footwork is very very silky. He can pick a pass. He doesn't lose the ball. I think he's going to bring goals as well. Like it's really 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 exciting to have a player of that quality at Sunderland because it's been a long while.
I think that's harsh on Dan Neil and Joe, to be honest. Like
Do you
I get
really?
what you
Fine,
mean.
okay, right, okay. Let us retract that. Dan Neil and Job aren't courses. The fucking
Right.
they're like Jaguar F Paces. They're like
Right, fair enough.
and then like Lafay's a Lamborghini,
Right, fair enough. I'll accept that.
and Anthony Patterson is a horse and cart. Nah, I'm joking. I'm joking. His ass would go straight through the cart. No, but yeah, as for Lafay, like that ball he played in for Wilson against Burnley, like because it was like did he use like the side? Yeah, when he played then I was like, whoa, like that. Nobody else is picking that pass out. Job maybe, but that like he announced himself very very quickly, and Wilson probably should have scored. Um, which brings on to another point. I was talking to a lad today, a Sunderland fan, who absolutely does not rate Wilson Isidore.
I think you know what? I can understand why certain types of fans don't like him. Certain fans don't like when footballers are happy. I genuinely think that's what it is. It's because he's such a happy, breathy character. I feel like some people are like, well, no, you're there to work hard. And sometimes when they don't always show that work rate, I think they get easily accused of being like lazy or being a prima donna or whatever. Like I've even mentioned it on other episodes where I've kind of been a bit annoyed at like when we're kind of hanging on in games. It was kind of similar last night where he doesn't really track back. and things like that. So things that I do great on is, so I can understand why it might upset other people as well. But I love the bloke, mate. I think he's brilliant.
I'm the same. I thought that he's the best striker we've had at that club for years. I can't. That was the who you going back to? Maybe Josh Madger, maybe.
Do you think he's better than
Um,
Ross Stewart? I don't.
Oh yeah, I think he is.
I think
Yeah.
his overall game, yes, he's finishing no.
Mm.
And
Ross Stewart
that's
worked harder. I'll say that, mate. Ross Stewart worked hard. Wilson does work hard. He just looks lethargic. But Ross Stewart really worked hard, mate. I think that's what we've missed since he's gone.
well,
That's why the poor lad cannot walk anymore.
and that's why Ross Stewart looks like Lieutenant Dan.
Magic legs.
But the conversation I was having today though was Isidore. He's not a very good finisher. He can't finish. But my argument was the sign of a very, very good striker is he's always in the position to at least have those shots. You know what I mean? Like Wilson often finds himself either 1-on-1 or getting a shot away or whatever. Obviously, the difference between him and an elite striker is elite strikers get in those positions and finish. But that's why they're like playing at the top leagues and the top clubs, etc. Isidore reminds me in a sense of Darren Bent because Darren Bent would miss a lot of chances, but he'd always be there or thereabouts. You know, he would always find room to get a shot away or find a bit of space, whatever it was.
It's
He's
strange,
raw,
isn't
and
it?
he's rough around the edges, but like he's only 24. There's a serious footballer there. Like
It's strange because like earlier on when I was saying about him being like his technique's quite unorthodox, and there's certain things he does where I kind of agree with the finishing. Like the goal he had disallowed last night, like you were saying, it was a good finish. To me, that ball could have gone anywhere, you know. Like it literally, it nearly went over the bar.
Well, I might as well have done.
And to be fair, and that Burnley chance as well when Lafay played him in, I think he really should be finishing that. But then on the other hand, I think his goal against Portsmouth the other week shows that he is quite a composed finisher.
So my argument there, Anth, would be yes, Wilson Isidore should be finishing that chance against Burnley, where he went 1-on-1 last night and he should have squared at Lafay or scored himself, etc. But Nazari Royston isn't getting in those positions to do that. You know what I mean? I'm not sure my ender would either. You know what I mean? Like I think Wilson has this very potent ability to just find the space, find the room, etc. And that's exciting. Like, but I think if he was a better finisher, he wouldn't be playing for Sunderland probably. You know what I mean? I love the guy. Like, and you know, when he went over to the ref last night, like he's got a lovely innocent little face. Going, oh, referee, what did they do wrong? the ref's going, oh, you come from an offside position. Like, oh, fuck off. No, he didn't. I felt a bit sorry for him because, like, he'll be desperate to banish those two missed penalties. You know what I mean? And just get a goal to forget about it. And really, last night he should have had it, and I did feel sorry for him. I also seen on Instagram where he liked a video of the new monkey in like 2001 or something.
do you know what I always go back to? It's like, do you know what? Like, I'm not bothered about if he doesn't have to be the best player in the world, but he's bought into the club, he's bought into the area, and we've been crying out for players like this for the best part of 10 years for me. Like, we've just had mercenaries turn up the club, couldn't give a shit about the club.
Of course we have.
Half-arse, picking up a decent wage. Like, man, like you can't ask for much more than what we've got
exactly.
at the club. Like, it's class.
You think of some of the stinkers we've had through the door, like fucking Callum McFadzeem, Styles, you know, like, yeah, fuck me. Like, these players who are probably a little excited to play for Sunderland, yes, fair enough, but also thinking, I would never play for these fuckers if they were up the top of the Championship or the Premier League. Like, this is me chance sort of thing. And never really getting on board with what Sunderland's about, I guess. Maybe I'm being harsh, I don't know, but we've had some shit players.
Exactly right. Darren Gibson, fucking rat ass. Just before the season kicks off. Like, I mean, like if we put a bit of time in it, we would come up with a list of probably 30 players. Like,
there's such a massive burden, I think, when you play for Sunderland, and like a lot of players that you've mentioned there clearly couldn't handle it. They couldn't handle like the scrutiny and like everyone kind of sometimes when it's not going well, obviously we do get on people's backs, but you can either sink or swim. And I think Wilson Isidore is the sort of player where he's come in, he's actually done his research a bit, and he's thought, you know what, I actually want to do it for these fans.
One of the player that like sort of really is a shining example of that not buying in, and Lamine Kone. I always remember like sent the Mags down. He scored that lovely volley, blah, blah. And the summer came where he was pictured by that Everton fan and that. And then all the rumours started and he was off to Everton and that. And then he obviously went into huff when we knocked back the transfers because he just went dog shit. And I thought, oh, you know what? That's like mercenary behaviour, like, and that's the exact opposite of what Sunderland fans want. Like, just fuck off, go and play where you want them.
I always remember when we got Januzaj as well, and everyone was buzzing. So it was a bit of quality. And they made that Stone Roses song was his chant.
He didn't deserve that, did he?
We were all singing it down City. It was probably a good chant. And I remember the club did an interview with him, and they like showed him that chant, and like he was watching it on his phone, and he just looked like he couldn't be asked. And it was just like, who the fuck do you think you are? Like, you think you're doing us a favour by being here? Fuck off.
Arrogant little shit. And as Mark said, like, we could make a list. Did and Dong. There's just so many.
Well. He's the one. Fabio Barini when he came back.
Aye, you're right, mind. You're right.
He didn't want to be here. You tell you, no one else wanted him. He didn't want to be here, and he didn't turn up for us. And it's like you said, they're the type of players I never ever want to see at our club again. Like we've got a really good sort of balance at the moment. May continue.
Exactly, and in fairness, I'm happy for these players to use Sunderland as a stepping stone to like further their careers because that's kind of the deal. You know what I mean? Like the good quality and they come in and they do well and they go off with our best wishes. Like that happened with Jack Clark, really. I mean, disregarding the fact we'd said on this podcast, like, fuck him when he hasn't been too well for Ipswich and stuff. But like he did kind of go with like, yeah, fair play, he's got his Premier League move. Yeah. See you later, Jack. And I'm happy with that. Is if that's the conveyor belt of a club we're going to be, I'm happy with that because it's working so far. Right, fellas, we're going to move on to some Twitter questions now. We haven't got that many this time round, which is a blessing and a curse because a blessing because we're not going to be trying to get through everybody, but a curse because people think this podcast's shit. So we'll start. We'll start with Tony Bang at Tony_Young78. How are you, Tony? With Sunderland's midfield three playing really well. When Mundle and Watson return, where will Lafay play? Great to see us with options. Nah, it's a cracking question.
You know what? I don't care what the three is. Like, I'm just, as you say, I'm just so buzzing that that's a problem we've got.
I think it just depends on the form at the time, doesn't it? When the back fit, because if we're winning games, then you stick with that team. If not, then you tweak it a little bit. But as you say, it's just lovely to have options in it and a bit of depth there for a change.
I think what I will say on those points is Lafay is the first name on the team sheet. Like,
yeah, you're right. Aye, it probably is. You're right.
But what does that mean for the likes of Mundle and Watson? I mean, we're hosting a podcast, here, fellas. Don't just say well, fuck knows. I mean, what'll be, wouldn't it? I'm not the manager. I've got no opinion.
Daniel. No, but it's like you say. I think they've all got to now realise that they're part of a system, and unless you're performing to the best of your ability week in, week out, there is a chance that you are going to miss out. To me, if I was any one of them, I'd be thinking, like, I need to make sure that I'm the one that's considered undroppable. Like, he can do what he wants with the other ones, but as long as he doesn't drop me, as long as all the players have that kind of mindset, I think it's only good for Sunderland, really.
Yeah, I think the reality is it's probably going to be Chris Regan. It's like, you're not going to get rid of Danny as a captain. Jobs, for me, is untouchable. And then Lafay, as you say, Danny's he's probably first one on the team sheet sort of for the rest of the season. So it's probably going to be Regan, that probably players getting 15, 20 minutes at the end, just as a bit of a rotation towards it as we go through the rest of the season. But that's just nice to have options.
It is. It's also a little bit of a dilemma in mind because Tommy Watson was really coming into his own. Mundle was looking excellent. We were thinking, Jack Clark version 2, it's a funny thing because the system potentially may have to be dictated around how they play, or are you simply waiting for a player to drop out of a bit of form or get injured again so you can include them? Because there's been some accusations that the manager is shoehorning Lafay in on the left-hand side when he'd be much better utilised through the middle. I don't know what you think about that.
I quite like him out on the left. He's got a bit more space than I think you would probably have in the middle. So I'm pretty relaxed about that. He's obviously not as direct as Mundle and Tommy Watson are, but he's perfectly capable of playing there for me.
Rob Ellison Davidson at Rob SAFC fan. Hiya, Rob. He says, beat Plymouth and we've taken 13 from 15 points in January. We've played the quote best unquote and shouldn't be scared of anyone with the return of Mundle, Watson, Sameed, Brown, Abdullahi, Paveda and Sealt. We're finally seeing some real depth. Borough and Leeds are big games in February, so why not the automatics?
I totally agree. I think if we can get past Borough and Leeds, I think if we can come out of those games with 4 points, I think we're going to go up automatically. Like, I know it's still a long way to go after them, but and we could easily slip up against a lesser team as we've been prone to do. But there's no reason why we can't go up, win the league, basically.
Just to let you down, lads. Leeds are winning 1-0 after 3 minutes against Norwich.
Look, there's a lot of games left, and anything can happen in that sort of 20-odd games, whatever it is. Like, I'm not worried, like, because I think there's probably Leeds who, like, now that I'm seeing them play, I do echo what Mark said, and he said it very early on, in fairness. Like, I think there is only Leeds who are sort of better or maybe the same level. Like, Sheffield United and Burnley haven't looked out flash, and we probably should have taken more points on them, albeit we've still done very well. And again, saying that list of players, we played the best. Beat Plymouth on Saturday, and as Rob says, we've taken 13 from 15 points in January. That is automatic promotion form, like.
That's a tremendous return, isn't it? That's tremendous effort, like this time of year. Absolutely brilliant. I mean, there's only the Stoke game really in the way. It's a bit of a blip for us, but yeah, we just
and that's all it was. That a blip, you know what I mean? Like, how often do Sunderland's blips turn into like full season meltdowns?
Oh God,
that's true. I will say though about Leeds, like I think in that game against us, they did look a cut above us earlier on the season. But like I watched them against Blackburn, and they drew ones each, and they had a lot of the ball, but they wasted a lot of opportunities, didn't do out with it. And then I watched them on Saturday against Chef Wed, and Chef Wed, if they had a bit more quality like we've got, they could have scored 2 or 3 against Leeds. I didn't really rate Leeds. I think
Leeds won 3-0, Anthony.
No, but that's against a better side, though. Against a better side, I don't think.
I know what you mean.
I mean that's like saying, like, I did have a fight with a bloke and he's broke 15 in my teeth. He's taking an eye out and I'm in a wheelchair, but I still feel like I won the fight.
I got the first punch in.
No, I know what you mean, but like for me, Leeds they just keep find a way to win, don't they?
And that's what promotion sides do, isn't it?
And they're just a bit more resilient than probably we have been throughout the season. But that's not to say I think we will have a strong second half, as I've been saying. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, it could still be on. I wouldn't rule out winning the league. Like, definitely not.
Because I think we're going to be. You're about Leeds being resilient. I think with the players that we're getting back and the depth we now have, I think we could quite easily become that.
Maybe. I mean, looking at that list, I tell you who I am looking forward to seeing more of. Jensen Sealt. I think he's a player, like, albeit he's very young and just starting out and probably won't get a game centre half. Like, he's a player I'm looking forward to seeing. He's a nice option to have.
Can we recall Triantis back from Hibs?
Do you think they'd let us? Did you see that on Twitter actually at the weekend where the Hibs fans were saying it's just a shame that Scottish football isn't funded as English football is, because if it was, Triantis would much rather play for Hibs than Sunderland. And his argument was, well, Edinburgh's a lovely city and Sunderland isn't. Right, okay, I accept the fact Edinburgh's a better city than Sunderland, but like, what a load of bollocks. You know what I mean? Like, fucking Hibs, mate. Who's it? Nobody's even heard of Hibs.
Celtic and Rangers, you can make that argument and say if they had English football money, they could do something, but it very obviously ends with them. Like, no one else could. like a guillotine. It ends immediately after Celtic and Rangers. We're not seeing Stranraer in the Europa League if they played in England. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not going to happen.
No, I've said before, and I'll say it again, Scottish football's an absolute abomination. And it's just other than Celtic and Rangers, it's just not worth having. It's like League Two standard in it, other than Celtic and Rangers. Right,
Tony Byrne, hiya Tony. He says, we've currently got 54 points from 28 games. How many points do you reckon we need from our remaining 18 games to get an automatic promotion spot? I mean, you'd like to think that we win most and draw a couple, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I think they're certainly capable. So, I mean, 18 times 3, I'm not good at maths. So, is that 54? Maybe something,
54.
So, if we can, well, if we can double that, the current points we're on, that should be enough. But I think most of wins and the odd draw here and there, fine. I think, but it's going to be competitive to the very, very end because there's 4 teams there who are perfectly capable.
We just need to keep doing what we have been doing and like take it in banks of maybe 5 games at a time and just assess where we are.
We've got to have a much stronger second half of the season than we have first. I think is we've fought that many points away, and
yeah, that's the key, isn't it? We need to stop throwing away points.
We've had too many draws. They need to turn to wins, otherwise it won't happen. But we're perfectly capable of that, though.
The final Twitter question comes from Josh Hutchinson. Hi, Josh. He asks, how many penalties would we miss in a playoff final shootout? And like, I understand the sentiment behind the question, but it does bore a more serious question. Like, if Sunderland fall into the playoffs, do you think they'd win it? And if it ended in a penalty shootout, do you think we'd manage?
It'd be a lot of nerves, I think, and it wouldn't be helped by like I think the fact like Sky would always be like, "Oh, we all remember what happened with Turf Moor."
Yeah, I was gonna say like Isidore would need like some Ritalin before he took his penalty. So he'd be shaking like fuck.
He's that wired. He's like trying to take his penalty in the other goal.
Oh, so yeah, I mean, I don't know. I tell you what, he's a little game I concocted whilst you two were slavering on about nothing. I've picked up the lineups from last night. I'm just going to mention our starting 11, and I want you both to answer whether you think they'd score a penalty in a playoff final or not. So Wilson Isidore, we'll start with.
He's learned his lesson now, man.
Yeah.
All right, Enzo Lefebvre.
Yes.
Dennis Serkin.
Well,
Yeah.
I said in the group, I would have Dennis Serkin as a penalty taker. He's got a lovely left peg.
Yeah, tell you, I tell you what, Dennis Serkin's got lovely hair as well, lovely fashion sense. Lovely lad.
I'd shag him.
You wouldn't shag you though, Tony.
Luke O'Nien.
He would miss. And I don't.
I tell you what, it would either like the keeper would make a save, but it would squirm underneath and would go in, or he'd blaze it so far over the top it would go over the top of the Wembley Arch.
Yeah, it's like there's always a player where you're like, please, if anyone's going to miss, please let it not be you, and it would be Luke O'Nien for that very reason. I think technically, I think I would have him on penalties, like if I had to win a game, because I think he's a good like striker of the ball. But in a playoff final, he's destined to miss the 5th penalty.
No, he's one of those. He's like, you see it either gone to Rosette or he'll put it in the top corner. Do you know what I mean? Perfect penalty. It's one of those.
Joe Bellingham. He scores, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Got to be. Chris Metham.
Aye.
I'll probably fancy Metham. Like, Dan Neil.
No, he'd go full Mediterranean.
I think he'd miss.
He'd do a stuttered run up, wouldn't he? And just like tap it down the middle or something. That's what he'd do.
Like he'd go full Bobby Boucher and get too angry.
Giving our penalties away. I bet the fucking Middlesbrough keeper sat now listening to this podcast with no pad.
He's not listening to a podcast. He's fingering his daughter, man.
You've come to the right place.
What was that?
I don't know.
You've come to the right place, my gum.
Ashley. I said Ashley.
We're always fingering out children round here. Right, try Hugh.
Aye.
He's got a nice right peg, hasn't he?
I think so. Young Chris Rigg.
I wouldn't have him taken one.
Why not? Too young.
So much pressure.
He's a fucking mag.
Think you do a Mickey Chopra?
Get out of that club. Get out of that club.
And finally, Elijah Mayenda. I think Mayenda would miss, to be honest.
Yeah.
He's too clumsy.
There's no penalty taking Mayenda.
Nah, he's just like a big happy St Bernard. I think like a St Bernard jumping out over your frail little gran. That's what I think he is. Like, get out, man! Get out, you stupid bastard! Get out! Dear me. Could you take a playoff final penalty? Because I'm happy to admit I'm too much of a coward. Would I? Fuck, want to do that in front of 80,000?
I'd like to, that's all talk. I'd like to give it a go, because I always think I'd regret if I didn't.
I'd be the same. I'd have to do it.
I always have this recurring dream where, like, I'm playing for Sunderland and I go through 1-on-1, like, the last minute and it's a draw. And, like, sometimes I score, sometimes I miss. But either way, it's horrible. I don't like it. We're finished now. We're at the top of the podcast, let's call it. We're done. But I'm just scrolling through our Twitter feed, and there's a lot of attention on your tweet last night, Anth, about only Sunderland will get done by a dodgy VAR decision in a league that doesn't have VAR.
That's true, though, isn't it? Like, we all kind of knew what was going to happen. Another thing as well that happened on the back of that decision, did they restart the game from the centre circle? Because again, if they did, that's corruption. That's just wrong.
I can't recall. I was in too much of a fettle.
No, I don't think the cameras caught him, to be honest, because I think they were too busy watching Isidore celebrate, and then it was just it was an absolute mess, the whole situation.
I'm surprised it hasn't had more publicity, to be honest. I know it's the championship and that, but
that's
why, though, isn't it?
That's the top and bottom. If that was City versus United, can you imagine they'd be wanking each other off on the Sky Sports desk? Fucking Mike Dean gobbling off fucking Paul Merson.
Gobbling off.
Right, fellas, is there anything else you'd like to add before we sign off for the evening?
This bit us on the arse in the reverse fixture.
Yes, exactly.
How do you think we're going to do against Plymouth Argyle? Bearing in mind, Wayne Rooney's not there anymore, so...
I don't know. I mean, part of us, obviously, a huge part of us thinks, well, we should be turning Plymouth over at home, obviously, but every team in this league is a banana skin if you don't approach the game right, so... it might be just a duplicate of last night against Derby. As long as you win, I couldn't give a toss. But as for score prediction, maybe 3-1, something like
that. It's a tough one, isn't it, when they've just got a new manager in, but I think they're playing Burnley tonight, so it'd be interesting to see how they get on there. But
Burnley went on to win 5-0.
We've got to win. Like, it's the bottom of the league. Like, we can be no excuses, can there? We should be beating them. Simple as that.
You've still got the worst away record in the league and the worst goal difference, but I think, obviously, like you say, they've got a new manager and new ideas, and they managed to get that win away at Brentford. So I think that'll have inspired a lot of belief. Like, if we can go to a team where they're fourth or fifth in the Prem and, keep a clean sheet and get a win, I think they'll set up exactly the same against us.
I just hate it when people say things, not that you've done anything wrong, mind that, but I just hate it when people say things like, that they've got the worst goal difference, they concede all the time, worst defense. Because I remember when Everton signed that Coney and he hadn't scored for like 50 games. And then we played them at Goodison Park and he scored that. So like,
that's just Sunderland, that one is.
But that's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. Like Plymouth will come beat us 5-0 at the weekend now.
But this is what I mean, though. We need to show that we're past that. That's what's going to make the difference this season. Like, even earlier on in the season when we weren't seeing games out and we weren't kind of killing teams off, and they were getting late goals, and that was a problem at the turn of the year. Last night, you could turn around and say, well, everything was set up for that to happen again last night, and it didn't. So that surely has to be progress and a good sign.
I'd like to think so. We'll see how we get on. Thank you, everybody, for giving us an hour of your time. Again, very much appreciate you tuning in and all the lovely comments we've had of late. Thank you very, very much. Do leave us a 5-star review over on Twitter, on Sky Social. I'm going to tell you we'll post on Sky Social, but that probably won't happen. But as I've said about 6 weeks in a row now, I will endeavour to open that app and do something with Sky Social. In the interim, there's episodes there to listen to. Let's see, you can give us a like on Facebook, Twitter, all the rest. A 5-star review will be great. And see you after the Plymouth game. Take care. Bye-bye.
There he is.
See you later.
I don't know where I'm heading. I search for all alone. Nice goal! Sensation! When we'll be there, I don't know. When we'll get there, I am certain. Always I am on my way. I'm the dream boy. Come home. Paint your wagon and come home. Where I'm going, I don't know. When we'll be there, I am certain. But who gives a damn?
Deep one again. Watson is right in there. So too is Holland. And Porterfield! Oh, Porterfield has scored! And Sunderland